What up, watch peeps? Let's talk about the Cincinnati Captain that I unboxed a few weeks back. I like to give them some time before I review them. Now, I've talked to our owner a few times since then, and his enthusiasm for his watches makes me love this brand even more. Plus, they have an in-house watchmaker putting them all together right nearby in Cincinnati. How cool is that? Now, I reviewed their field watch if you want to go back and check that video out, and hopefully I'll get my hands on their diver this summer. But for now, the Captain. I'm Pete, and we are Chillin' with Watches. Wrist check, I am wearing the Seiko Alpinist today. This is the watch I have that's probably most similar to the Cincinnati Captain that we have here. Now, I'm the kind of guy who does not care much about the watch box. This thing is very simple, straightforward, nothing fancy, but perfectly sufficient. Inside you'll find your Cincinnati Watchco warranty card. And then underneath there, you will find the Cincinnati Captain. Now, this watch is one of 3 variants in what they call the Time Hill collection. Each dial has a completely different layout. There's a black dial, and then there's also an artsy version called the Union Terminal, as it's designed to look like a popular clock at the Union Terminal train station. All 3 versions retail for $279. Now, the first thing that really grabs your attention about this watch is that gorgeous champagne dial. You'll see it sits under a very vintage domed acrylic crystal. But then the light hits it a certain way and you'll notice those blued hands, which are super cool. But back to the dial, the layout of it is brilliant in a number of ways that aren't immediately apparent. I love that it has Arabics and an inner 24-hour ring like a field watch, but done in a way that doesn't scream field watch and is much more sporty than tooly. And check out how the finishing on that 24-hour ring is different. It gives you the impression of a sector dial almost. Then you'll see you have that railroad track outer ring. Nothing on the dial is extremely high contrast, other than the hands, which I think makes it a tad more dressy and legible at the same time. Despite being a smaller watch, it has rather wide lugs that give it some body, making it more wearable by more wrist sizes. Looking at it in profile, you'll see it's quite thin, which makes it extremely comfortable, but also it's a tad bit flat, which is maybe my only criticism, is that it wears a bit flat. And maybe that's a bit of personal preference too. But you'll see that it does have drilled lugs. And on the other side, you'll see a very proportionately sized screw-down crown. And since it's a no-date watch, you'll rarely ever have to use that. The case back is simple, circular brushed with some, I believe that's laser-etched branding on there. Now, a lot of decisions were made throughout the design of this watch, not only to look, but to feel vintage. And that continues through the bracelet. I love these almost flat Jubilee links, and they're nice short links too. It starts at 20 millimeters at the lugs, which is awesome on a 36 millimeter watch, by the way. And then it tapers the full 4 millimeters down to 16 at the clasp. Now, the outer clasp is a nicely finished 2-button release with engraved branding there as well. The inner clasp is pressed, but not as a cost-saving measure, but because that's what a vintage watch like this would have. And if you want the watch to feel vintage on the wrist, those are the sorts of things you do, and I like it. It works. It's a quartz, so no Timegrapher today, but we can see if the second hand hits all the marks. And I would say this watch is about 90% in that regard. It is almost spot on from, I don't know, let's say 5 to 30. And then it starts to drift from 30 back around 12 to 5. But even where it drifts, it's only off by a tiny bit. All right, let's talk numbers. Going over the dimensions, we are looking at a 36 millimeter case with a 44.8 millimeter lug to lug. It is 10.3 millimeters thick, but that is including this domed acrylic crystal. It's 7.3 without it. And as mentioned before, 20 millimeter lug width. Going over some of the other specs, we have that beautiful domed acrylic crystal. It uses C3 lume on both the dial and handset. And it is running a Ronda 713 top grade 5 jewel quartz movement. So really nice movement, no joke quartz. And it has 5 ATMs of water resistance, which I think is a real 50 meters of water resistance. So I have no worries about getting this thing a little bit wet. Now, it comes in at a crazy 95 grams on the bracelet, sized for my 7¼ inch wrist. And here is how it looks on my 7¼ inch wrist. Like I said, I have other 36s that I think maybe wear a tad small. Even that 37 millimeter Vario trench I thought wore small. But this one, I think I can pull it off. I think it wears just fine on my wrist. Let's take a look at it side by side, some other watches. First up, here it is next to my 36 millimeter Explorer build. Basically the same size case. I think here you can see where the wider lugs on the Captain give this watch just a little more body, making it wear great. Next up, how about the Alpinist, which is, you know, a few millimeters bigger than the Captain, but kind of similar designs in those champagne dials. And I think here you can see, even next to a 39 millimeter watch, how the Captain doesn't wear all that small for a 36. Lastly, as the benchmark, we always do the Seiko SKX. Obviously, this is a much smaller watch, but I think this is something that everybody has seen and has a feel for the size of. Alright, lastly, let's check out that C3 lume.
Peep the lume.
As you guys all know, C3 is my favorite lume, and this watch does not disappoint. It's awesome to see killer lume on like a sporty, dressier watch like this. So there you go, the Cincinnati Captain. I really enjoy wearing this watch. It's one of those ones that's fun to look down your wrist and see. I kind of like the vibe of this watch. It has that casual chillin'. See, I don't always wear a diver's look. Plus, it takes the best pocket shots ever. All right, before I let you go, sneaker check. Yeah, I'm wearing my Jordan 1 lows. Shot 2 videos in one day. All right, that's it. I'm out. If it's not too much trouble, like, subscribe, and come back next time. Peace.